I once thought that being a Luna meant always maintaining grace and composure. But reality gave me a harsh slap in the face. On that night at the bar, I completely lost control. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. That self-righteous person. She not only provoked me but also tried to belittle my position in the pack, and even resorted to hitting me. I couldn't bear it any longer and finally exploded, getting into a fight with her. And Thane, my mate, his expression when he saw this scene is unforgettable to me. Would he think him too weak to be a Luna? Would he distance himself from me because of my impulsiveness? This conflict not only plunged me into the abyss of self-doubt, but also threw my love life into an unprecedented crisis. Chapter 20, Fist Fight. I love you. Thane whispered and whisper face was poured down my back. I suddenly jolted away from him, far enough for his hands to fall from my waist. What? I stammered in surprise and bewilderment. You heard me. He took my right hand in his and fiddled with the ring he gave me when I arrived here. Thane, you love me? I asked in incredulity. How could you? I mean, it's only been a month. That doesn't matter to me. He gave me a weak smile and I knew he was hurt. Love, I squeaked. Are you sure? I covered my face with my hands in frustration because I liked Thane so much that it sometimes envy, but did I love him? I didn't have an answer for that. I felt like if I can't answer that question myself, then how could I possibly tell him my feelings? He pulled my hands away from my face. Yes, I'm sure. He chuckled and brought my gaze back to the ring on my finger. When I gave you this ring, it was for two reasons. One, you already know, was my promise to marry you, and secondly, I gave it to you because I knew from then that I was in love with you. You're my mate. How could I not? He laughed. But you didn't even know me back then, was my lame response. I did. It may have been a few days, but I paid attention to every single detail about you. To the way you crinkle your nose when you're confused, to the way you unconsciously feel safer whenever I'm around you, to the way you bite your lip in concentration. You hate when the room's messy. You like the crust of your bread cut. Often do you think I don't catch you smiling at me whenever I'm in my office working, but I do. You're everything I could want in a mate, sweetheart, and I could go on about you. His eyes crinkled as he smiled. You know, for an alpha you're pretty mushy. I nervously laughed. Only for you, babe. He winked before he adopted a serious expression. I know you don't feel the way I do. I really like you, Thane. In this through thick and thin, but I'm not sure about the L word. I trailed off. That earned me a genuine smile from him. Let me rephrase then. I know you don't feel as strongly as I do just yet. He added in the last two words when I glared at him. But I wouldn't take it back because it's how I feel, but I had to tell you. However, I don't expect you to rush into your feelings and say it back. The last thing I want to do is pressure you into the same way for me. When and if you ever feel the same way, I want you to mean it with conviction and without prejudice. I won't repeat it until then though, because I could tell you feel uncomfortable. You never fail to surprise me. You know that. I beamed up at him. One of my many talents, he answered as he pulled me to him, closing the distance between the both of us physically and metaphorically. I giggled as he crushed his lips onto mine in possession, but slowly subsided into a passionate lip lock. The next morning I woke up to an empty bed since Thane left bright and early to meet up the young wolves from yesterday. The one who initiated it, Blake. Thane wanted to meet with him to both scold him in only the way an alpha can and help him out in training because his initiative showed great potential for a future pack warrior. I quickly showered and went down to the main floor to find Bailey, since Thane practically banned me from the infirmary until further notice. He even left a guard outside the door to prevent me from entering. As I arrived to the bottom of the staircase, I spotted Bailey hand in hand with Lucas, Pack Beta and her mate. She kissed him goodbye as he left for training and turned into the grand kitchen because she didn't have training today. Hey Bea, I chirped as I entered the kitchen. Hey Em? I heard about yesterday. She came up to me to give me a bear hug even though she was as petite as they came but as strong as a bear. Yeah. Overuse of power. I rolled my eyes and plopped down in a bar stool. So what you doing today? I'm on kitchen duty for lunch. Then I might go meet up with the girls," she explained as she pulled out various ingredients from the pantry. I curiously asked. She smiled at my raised eyebrows. "Maybe if your mate let you go for a second, you would have hanged out with us more. It's basically Caroline, Delilah and myself, but Layla and Abigail is joining us today. You're free to join us if you want. I remember Delilah from when I met the pack almost a month ago when I arrived here. Caroline was BA's mate, who I have yet to meet since I saw her in the crypt and Thane dragged me out. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm." Bailey's sister was the #1 person I despised, and her little minion Layla. "Tempting," I muttered sarcastically, "but he'll pass on the offer." I moved around the counter and she offered my assistance. "Come on, it will be fun." She passed me a few vegetables to cut up. "You do realize I strongly hate your sister, right?" I said without hesitation because Bailey felt exactly what I did for her sister. Abigail was adopted by Bailey's parents, and since then Abigail has made Bailey's life torture. Why is she even hanging out with you? She's such a bitch. I honestly have no idea why she started hanging out with us. It's the second time that Shess crashed our party, but I can't stop her because she just weasels her way into our time. Bailey rolled her eyes at her sister's behavior. "Well, is Shess there? You can count me out. Come on. Don't let her get to you. You're either Luna for crying out loud. Show her who's boss and stand your fine ass up to her jealous attitude." Bailey preached. If only it was that easy. Every time I think of her, I can't get the image of her throwing herself at Thane and kissing him. I said angrily and almost cut myself as I was blinded by rage. "Well, you have me to support you against her snarky remarks, bless him, sure Thane. We'll kick her out of the pack if you ask." She flipped her hair as if we were discussing the weather. "He could, but I don't want that." To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. Cheers, the Alpha. If he doesn't want her in the pack, then he will just command her to leave and break her pack connection so she isn't able to come into the pack's territory and communicate with us through pack link. She shrugged. "That's terrible." I gasped, and even though I didn't like her doesn't mean I want her to go rogue. Honestly, if she threw herself at Lucas like that and kissed him, I would love cut a bitch, then have her thrown out like the trash that she is. She said nonchalantly. "Bailey." I scolded, but couldn't help the laugh that bubbled up inside me. "But seriously, Em, why haven't Thane kicked her out yet? She has been nothing but a menace in the pack since for as long as I can remember. She hardly does anything. She hates you, the Luna, and to add the cherry on the sundae, she's basically in love with your mate." I slammed my fist on the chopping board when she said that because even though Thane loves me, what if he thinks just because I haven't sorted out my feelings that I don't want him and she pushes her feelings onto him? I mean no offense, and I only wish the best for you, sweetie, but Thane should have disposed of her. She finished. I was finished peeling some potatoes when she took them from the bowl and added them to some hot water on the stove. "Mashed potatoes," she explained. "I don't know why he haven't, but I don't want him to, even though he said he would if she crossed the line. After the whole kiss thing she backed off, didn't she? Plus I don't want the pack to think that in dictating their life and put them in fear of possibly being rogue. My intention is to gain their respect, not make them fear me," I told her. Bailey smiled in understanding. "I knew you were going to be a great Luna, and I respect your decision. Plus, you may not know it yet, but the pack respects and adores you more than you can understand. I may not get to spend enough time with everyone, but you're all my family now, and I couldn't be more grateful." I grinned at what Bailey revealed to me. "Great. So it's settled. You're going with us today." She clapped her hands in finality. I laughed at her change in direction. "When did we go from discussing your sister to my decision changing to yes? Since I said so. Plus, if Abigail gives you any trouble, Caroline wouldn't be opposed to throw down a good fight with her. Her rogue instinct still kicks in, and she almost punched Abigail the first time she met the wicked witch of the pack." I couldn't help the laughter from escaping me at what Bailey was saying. We continued preparing lunch for some of the pack while Bailey amused me with stories of Caroline, who I couldn't wait to meet, and told me about her and Lucas, which were a little too explicit for my virgin ears. By the time we were done, I was starving and hiccuping from all the laughter Bailey and I did. When most of members from the pack house who were out training came in to eat, I looked out for Thane because I know he hadn't eaten since early that morning. "Hey, where's Thane?" I asked Lucas when he came into the kitchen to meet Bailey. "Still training?" "Why?" he asked, concerned. "It's time for lunch. So tell him to get his butt here." I grinned, while Lucas mind-linked Thane. I helped set the table with the food and plates for everyone. When Bailey and Lucas sat down at the table, Lucas said, "Alpha said he isn't hungry." I glared at Lucas. "Tell him I need him right now." I knew he had to train and help train the others, but if he didn't eat his meal on time, then he wouldn't be able to do neither. Plus, I know if I said I needed him, he would be here faster than the speed of light. Lucas just grinned at me after he communicated my message to Thane, and I knew he was on his way. I went outside with a shirt and a pair of shorts for him and waited on the steps on the front porch. In a matter of a few minutes, then Wolf came barreling into the driveway in a blur of black fur. He came to a halt when he saw me sitting waiting for him and stared at me with his blood-red eyes. He slowly closed the distance between us to where I was sitting and bowed his head to me in greeting. I couldn't remember why I was scared of Wolf all those weeks ago when I was sitting with pure amazement at that moment. Maybe it was the fact that I didn't know the man behind the wolf back then. He looked up at me when I gingerly stretched my hand out to touch his head. He lowered his head slightly and I scratched his head. "Hey, Alpha," I said, brushing my fingers through his soft fur. He purred in contentment, and before I knew what he was about to do, he licked my cheek with his tongue. I couldn't help but laugh and cringe at the same time. "EWWW, gross." I wiped my face with the t-shirt I had for him. "Bad dog," I playfully scolded. He let out a playful growl at me before he shifted back to my Thane in all his naked glory. "Hey, beautiful." He brushed some hair out of my face as I blatantly checked him out, while holding myself back from lowering my eyes below waist level, even though it was basically right in my face due to him standing and me sitting. Realizing what I was doing, I quickly stood up with a blush and shoved his clothes in his hands and turned around. I heard him chuckling behind my back while he changed. When he was finished, he wrapped his arms around my waist. "I missed you today," says the guy who wanted to skip lunch and coming home to me. I turned my head so that I was looking at him from over my shoulder. "I just want to make sure that the pack is safe. That you're safe," he explained with a kiss to my cheek. "You can do that without killing yourself and the pack in training." I scolded. "I know. I'm just paranoid that something is going to happen when we least expect it. We'll be ready when a fight arrives, Thane. But we can't wear ourselves out till then," I explained. "Look at you, being a loner." I just shrugged. "It's who I'm meant to be, that's for sure," he murmured as I pulled him inside to the dining table where everyone was eating. I pushed him into a seat at the head of the table and placed a plate in front of him. "You smell like a wet dog." "Only for you, babe." I playfully rolled my eyes. "Now eat." I kissed his forehead before taking my seat next to him. "Yes, Mum." He and everyone at the table laughed, and it was only then that I realized everyone was staring at us. Their Alpha and Luna, and our playful banter. Bailey shot me a wink from across the table, and I smiled but looked down at my plate in embarrassment. Thane took my left hand at his right one and placed a gently kiss on the back of my hand before he placed our entwined hands on the table and began to eat. It was strange eating with my one hand while holding hands with Thane, but in an odd way. Comforting. However, it was beyond me that we seemed to be constantly touching each other in one way or another just for the sake of ensuring the other that we were there. By the time everyone was finished with their meals, they were off again to do one thing or the other. Don't forget we're leaving in an hour," Bailey said to me before she headed off towards her room. "Leave for where?" Thane asked in confusion and worried. I smiled at his concern. "Don't worry, babe. I'm not running away today." I laughed at his pained expression. "That isn't funny." "Where were you going?" he questioned again. "Bailey and the girls are hanging out, so she invited me to join them since a certain Alpha banned me from the infirmary." I scared and tapped his nose in scolding. "And where exactly is Bailey taking you?" he asked cautiously. "I don't actually know. She just said get ready in something nice. Unless your pack runs a strip club. I think we'd be fine. Thane just let out a laugh. I'm sorry to tell you, but that's just one of the few things we don't have around these parts. We do, however, have a club. My eyes popped open wide. A club. That seemed a bit much for a pack of wolves who were constantly training. More like a speakeasy. A spa. I laughed. That isn't a club, Thane. Well, it's just a little place for the pack to relax when they want to. Contrary to popular belief, we aren't all about military training. I would have never thought. I played along. Well, it's normally empty except for the few old patrons and after a successful fight against rogues, he explained as he pulled me in for a hug. Go relax and have fun. He kissed my forehead. I wrapped my hands around his neck and reveled in his embrace. Join us. I hoped. I would love to, sweetheart. But I have border patrol which starts now actually. I will take you another time when it's just you and I. Promise. Promise. He pecked my lips. Now go enjoy your evening. I will see you tonight. Thane left with one lingering kiss and went his way to go protect his pack. I'll pack. I hurried up the flights of stairs to find something presentable to wear. I wasn't really a glamorous dresser, but I felt like dressing it up since I don't go out anymore. Not like I was the club type before, but my few friends, and I did have our occasional girls' night out. I walked into the closet and stared at the various items that Bailey and I bought when I got here, but most of the stuff was Bailey's choice since my main goal that day was escaping. Going to the extreme back of the walk-in closet, where I stored most of the dresses and revealing clothing that Bailey bought and I never wore. I looked through the racks in decisiveness. Going with the first thing that seemed good enough, I pulled out a short white, spaghetti strap dress with a beautiful blue embroidery designed that filled most of the top and flowed to a floral design to the bottom of the dress. After a shower, brushing out my hair and applying a little makeup, I tried on the dress. When I looked in the mirror in the bathroom, I realized it fell mid-thigh and had a low enough V-neck cut that accentuated my cleavage. I started tugging the neckline up and the hemline down and was about to grab another dress when there was a knock on the door before it flew open with an overeager Bailey on the other side. Oh my gosh. You look smoking hot, babe. Bailey squealed in delight. Not as good as you, Bale. I laughed at her excitement but meant every word as she wore a red bodycon dress that accentuated her short, curvy body and complemented her blonde hair with red sky-high heels. Now where's your shoes? She tapped her chin, but before I could go find a pair she was barreling into the closet herself. In a matter of seconds, she was out with a white envelope clutch and pair of blue heels that strap around the ankles. Definitely not a pair I would voluntarily choose. Stop fussing. She batted my hands away from my hemline and pushed me to sit on the bed and handed me my heels. While putting on the death trap, I saw her slip something inside my clutch. What are you putting in there? I asked suspiciously. Oh, nothing. Just some lipstick and some money. She waved me off. I don't have money, I said in a deep voice. Says the mate of one of the richest Alpha. She rolled her eyes and handed it to me. I opened the clutch only to see my lipstick and a sleek black card. I can't use his card. I scolded Bailey. The Blackwoods have businesses all over the world, Emery. He isn't just an alpha. He is an entrepreneur to babe. That's why he is in his office that much. Trust me, the card's yours to use, she explained. I still can't take his money. I felt strange with having his money in my face, but I didn't want to need his card. Well, it doesn't matter. He just said to give you this card. No questions asked. She shot me a look. Do I even want to know how much is deemed required to be one of the richest? I hesitantly asked. She laughed and responded. Trust me, you don't. Plus, I'm sure the figure is way over anything math taught me. I got up from the bed and walked towards the door with Bailey in tow. I really hope math class only taught you until the tens figure. Bailey just giggled at my response all the way down to the garage. Choose your current, Bailey said, standing next to the set of keys on the wall. There was much because the wolves prefer to go on foot, or cars since it was faster. But Thane did own his Jeep and Mustang, and there were other trucks around for pack use. The Mustang, I decided without hesitation. Bailey threw the keys to me and I quickly sat in the driver's seat and started up the beauty. The purr of the engine gave me a rush of excitement and I couldn't wait to test it out as Bailey hopped into the passenger seat. "Let's go." Bailey clapped. Turns out we were going to the speakeasy as Bailey directed me to pull in front of the bar, which didn't have a car in sight because we were among wolves after all. The building was a red brick two-story with a certain rustic chic and vintage effect with a neon sign that read Blood Moon Speakeasy. It looked like a place to sit back, relax and have a glass of smooth scotch. I put the car in park, turned it off and shoved the keys in my bag before we went inside the bar. I was surprised at the well-decorated interior, not because my lack of faith in the pack but because it was so modern yet chic. Whoever designed inside definitely had a knack for style. To the left side of the room was a large bar stocked with various alcoholic drinks on the shelves of the wall, and the large counter was littered with little tea candles. The entire counter was surrounded by black, sleek leather bar stools where I spotted out for people entourage. To the right of the room was several seating arrangements that varied from stools, black leather couches and chairs. The brick walls were decorated with mirrors, windows, paintings and wine glasses. Besides the windows, the only source of lighting were a few hanging light bulbs over the coffee tables by the sofas, the tea candles that were scattered around the room, and overhead lights over the bar which created a dark yet soft effect. There was also a small to the back of the room and a staircase that led to a bigger seating area upstairs according to Bailey. Aside from the girls, the only other people on the first floor was an old couple that looked to be in their mid-50s and two bartenders, one female and one male. "Hey girls." Bailey squealed happily as we joined the girls by the bar. "Hey Bailey," Delilah answered with a smile. Abigail and Layla were engaged in a chit-chat, but when they heard us approach they looked up with disgust in their eyes. Beats me why they even came when none of us liked them enough to hang out with them willingly. "Who brought the human?" Abigail smeared at me. "Lovely to see you two in rear." "It's Abigail," she growled angrily. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." "How silly of me," I said innocently because I was quite aware of her name. "Just relax, ABI. She's our Luna and fighted hang with us. If you don't like her then go somewhere else." Bailey butt in. "Whatever." Abigail rolled her eyes and turned back to Layla. "You must be the Luna," a raven-haired girl said to me, and I outvoiced her as Caroline. "And you must be the girl who's putting Bo in his place these days." I smirked and she instantly smiled at me and pulled me into a bone-crushing hug. "Can't breath," I whispered and she released me. "Sorry, I'm not accustomed to being gentle or hugging a human." She laughed. "I also wanted to thank you for what you did for Bo and I. I don't know what Alpha Thane would have done had you not allowed Bo to meet me and also for my release," she said sadly. I placed my hands on her shoulder. "Hey, it's fine. You're part of the pack now and that's all that matters." "Fuck yeah." She nodded and covered her mouth. "Sorry. I basically grew up rogue." I just laughed at her blatant cursing and knew that I instantly liked her. "Okay, we get it. She's the savior. Now can we order?" And that was of course snarky Abigail. I took a seat between Bailey and Caroline since Delilah sat between Caroline and Abigail and you'll to the end. "So Emery, I heard about your superpowers," Delilah said as Bailey ordered a few rounds of shots for us as a starter. "Yeah, it's really strange but M20 for 7 first aid kit," I joked, to which everyone but Abigail laughed at. "So tell us, Emery, how's the Alpha?" Bailey smirked at me mischievously. "What do you mean?" I asked, confused. "Odd, can she be any more dense? She doesn't even understand the innuendo." Abigail jabbed. "What she meant is, how's he in bed?" Caroline explained to me as we all ignored Abigail. I instantly felt my cheeks heat up and stained red. Abigail laughed. "WW, she hasn't even done it yet. It's just that we haven't really known each other that long and it just haven't really come up yet. Plus, it's just not the right time." "Don't worry, Emery. I'm sure the Alpha can't wait to get his hands on you. But he just wants you to be sure about what you want, when you want it, Delilah said, comforting me. Beau and I jumped straight into bed the day I met him, Caroline said without shame and regret. Bailey just laughed. Yeah, but we're wolves. We feel the mate bond 10 times more than Emery does. I just smiled a little and felt a bit iced out because I was a wolf like they all were. While everyone was discussing their sex, que des. The bartender placed our first round of shots in front of us. Bailey quickly changed topics and count down our first shot. I felt the liquid burn the back of my throat as it went down. After that round, Bailey shifted gears and started to amuse us with tales of her and Lucas, which had us all laughing out of our seats. None of the other girls brought up any wolf-related topics, which I was grateful for since I couldn't relate, but Abigail kept her snarky remarks coming as we went on. Besides the witch and her minion, it was a really chill and fun evening. After about 3 rounds of shots and a glass of vodka, I switched to water since I already felt tipsy and didn't want to suffer from alcohol poisoning. The girls, however, drank to their heart's content since alcohol didn't affect them. As the sun set outside, I passed the card Thane gave me over to the bartender to cover the tab, and she just swiped it without question. After a few more rounds for the girls of gales of laughter, Bailey was talking about her first kiss, Abigail being the snake that she's had to cut in and make it all about her. My first kiss was Thane. I almost spit my water out on Caroline when I heard what she said. I was about to have a comeback when Bailey pulled me from my seat. Come on, let's dance, girls. Bailey laughed nervously as we all went to the back carrier of the speakersy on the dance floor. Some pop song was playing in the background on the speakers, but as the bartender saw us on the dance floor, he turned up the volume. I was still fuming at what Abigail said, but refused to let it get to me as I just wanted to enjoy my night out away from the pack house which I've spent most of my time in since I got here. Shaking off the jealousy, I started to relax into swaying along with the song. Bailey grabbed my hand and showed me how to properly dance, but the moves looked a little too provocative for this clumsy and shy girl. After a few songs, I went over to the bar to get a cocktail since I was parched and needed more alcohol to tolerate the witch's existence. Grabbing my drink from the counter, I turned only for it to be spilled directly onto Abigail's dress. If you can call the flimsy piece of material such a thing. You clumsy human, she shrieked at me in her high-pitched voice. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were behind me. I tried to defend myself, but she wasn't having it. She reached across me and grabbed a glass of scotch that Caroline left untouched and doused me with it. My hair, face and dress were all damp and stinks of the rich alcohol. We all know I'm the better woman for Thane. She smirked at me. Before I knew what I was doing, my fist connected with her jaw, but knew I was still weak compared to the wolf, so it only snapped her head one way, but it didn't knock her down. You bitch. She growled and lunged at me. She punched me directly in the nose and I heard the crack before I felt it and touched my nose to see the sign of blood coming out. I used all my strength and pushed her to the ground and got on top of her, and threw punches after punches against her cheeks. It was very unlike me to be aggressive, but the anger and jealousy that consumed me when she talked about Thane was unlike anything I've ever felt. Plus she was getting on my nerves. Who the fuck throws drinks at people? I asked incredulously while I continued to batter her. Abigail took that moment, pushed me back and switched towel positions until she was straddling me. She grabbed both my hands in hers and gave me a bloody smile. You're such a weakling. You can't be Luna and sit beside Thane and defend our pack. The only thing you're good at is being human, and you put us all in danger because of that. Clumsy, dumb and pathetic. Get off me. I yelled at her because her words struck home, but she only released my hands to send a good few punches to me. I tried pulling her fake extensions out, but with one last punch to my gut. I screamed in pain and she was yanked off me by Delilah and the guy bartender. From my broken place on the ground, I could see Bailey struggling to restrain Caroline, who had a deadly look in her eyes aimed at Abigail. The girl bartender helped me up and placed me on a stool as she held a white and towel to my bleeding nose and forehead. I already mind-linked the alpha. He should be here soon, she said sympathetically. I'm sorry, Luna. We should have pulled her off you sooner. It's not your fault. I managed to croak out. I was in so much pain. The only thing I wanted was to lay down, and the last thing I wanted was for Thane to get here and see me all broken and bruised. The only thing my loss in this fight proved was Abigail right. I'm nothing but weak underly for the pack. 1 step forward and 10 steps back. No amount of training was going to make me strong enough to match up to a wolf, let alone a rogue. Chapter 21, Exiled. While the bartender helped clean my wounds, I could already feel myself healing as the bleeding stopped, but the pain was still prominent. Before I realized what was happening, Caroline escaped Bailey's grip and ran towards Abigail and sent a punch so hard I heard a cracking noise and she was out cold. See, all this could have been prevented if you just let me hit her when I met her. Caroline sighed and approached me. Let me help you. Before I understood what she meant, she grabbed my nose between her thumb and forefinger and twisted it back into place. Oh fuck, that hurt. I gasped in pain and covered my nose. Caroline just grinned at me. Your magical healing was already taking effect and we didn't want that cute nose of yours permanently damaged now, did we? At least warn a girl first. I laughed but immediately stopped when the pain stabbed me in my ribs where Abigail so graciously decided to punt. Are you okay? Bailey asked me with worry. I'm fine. I assured her. She nodded and took a cloth from the bartender and started to wipe the blood off my face. How bad do I look? I asked with a grimace as she dabbed a cloth on my wounds. Still as sexy as ever. Bailey winked at me, but I could still see the worry etched on her face. You know, for a human, you really swung at her good. Caroline gave me a high five to lighten up the situation. Not as good as you, though. You seriously need to teach me how you knocked her out. How did the fight start anyways? Bailey asked, concerned lie. I spilt my drink on her by accident and she decided to reciprocate the action, and I sort of just punched her and we broke out in a fight. Caroline laughed at my guilty expression and I could see a smile playing on Bailey's lips. Before she could say anything, the front door of the speakeasy slammed open to reveal a menacing Thane. Where the fuck is she? Thane let out an ear-splitting growl and everyone fell silent, but before he could get an answer he already turned his head towards me and his eyes softened as he took huge steps to close the space between us. Before I could say anything, Bailey, Caroline and the bartender all scattered from around me as Thane pulled me into a hug. I whimpered out in pain and he instantly released me. Are you alright? He immediately looked me over and touched my face and ribs. Is anything broken? Just my pride. I laughed without humor. Emery, seriously, are you alright? He took the cloth from Bailey and tended to my wounds. I'm okay now. I smiled at him. Pass me some water. He asked and the bartender immediately handed him a glass of water and he wet the cloth and pressed it above my right eye. I didn't think sending you to the bar alone would land it up with you in a fight. He gave me a small smile, but I could tell it was fake as his anger was still brewing below. You're not the only one who gets into fights, you know. Yes, but my job's to protect you. I'm sorry, I wasn't here to fight for you. You look down in shame. Hey, you fight for me every day. More than anything that I do for you. I assured him. He went radio silent as he continued to stop the blood flow from above my eye and then wiped off the blood from my face and hands. When he was done, he looked at me and inspected every inch of my body visible to him for any damage that needed tending to, but after he saw nothing of major concern, he brushed a few strands of my hair away from my eyes and placed a kiss on my forehead. I can't believe I let this happen to you. I was so worried. He trailed off as he placed his face in the crook of my neck and breathed in my scent. I wrapped my arms around him. I'm okay, Thane. He just nodded without saying another word and stayed like that for a few minutes, and I could tell he was trying to rein in some of his anger. He then turned to a now conscious Abigail. His demeanor changed from complete concern to pure rage as he turned towards Abigail, who just came back around after being knocked out by Caroline. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Thane growled as Bo and Lucas, who walked in with Thane, picked Abigail off the couch roughly and detained her by her two arms and stood her up to face the alpha. What the hell did you think you were doing? He rhetorically asked. Babe, shut your damn mouth. Thane yelled at her. I am your alpha and you will address me as such. So don't you dare call me that. He pointed at her and he was shaking with anger. I was surprised he kept his wolf in check so well, that he hasn't shifted yet. He continued when he was sure she was going to open her mouth again. For what you did. To my mate. The woman I love. To the Pax Luna. You're lucky I haven't tripped your head off yet. She began again. You love me. I know. He cut her off. No, save whatever bullshit you're about to say to yourself. I don't have feelings for you and I never will. Don't you see that I don't care? And if you think I love you because I haven't killed you yet. He gave her a menacing grin that sent chills down my spine. Well, you're going to fucking worship me when I tell you what I have planned for you. I warned because I didn't know what he had brewing, but from his anger I knew it was going to be nice. He turned back to me with pure evil in his eyes. I respect you as the Luna. Emery, and you're free to make any decisions any other time, but now. You have to let me deal with this on my own accord because you aren't going to be with me now. This mutt is mine to deal with. He turned back to Abigail, who looked like she was about to throw up. I knew he was going to let me button again, so I sat waiting like everyone else for Thane to hash out his punishment. In the moon goddess's name, I Alpha Thane call Blackwood. Exile you Abigail Miller from the Blood Moon Pack. All communications and dealings with any pack member will be forbidden according to pack laws, and if you so much as breathe on pack territory, your death will be payment. Thane swore his oath. I gasped in horror at what Thane just did. You have an hour to pack your shit and get the hell out of my land before I send some wolves after you. After all, you are now a rogue on our land. He smiled heavily at her. She looked at him in horror. No, no. No, she yelled. You can't do this. I love you. I always have, and I know you feel the same way too. You can't kick me out because of her. She spat venomous lies. She looked at me with a death glare. Look at her, touch her one more time and I will kill you. Thane threatened. I will kill her. I swear this isn't over. Abigail growled my way. Get rid of her. Thane commanded. Before they could escort her out. She lunged at me, but before she could throw a punch, Thane caught her arm and roughly pushed her towards the door and Interbo and Lucas's arms, who detained her properly. I told you that if you touched her again I would. I cut Thane off. Leave her be, Thane. She's no longer a part of our pack. I stopped him because I was not allowing him to put her blood on his hands for me after he just kicked her out of the pack. He doesn't love you and you will never be good enough for this pack. She growled at me. Bo and Lucas dragged her out of the bar, and from through the windows I saw her shift into a dark brown wolf and ran off. I must admit, her words did strike a chord in me. Make sure she leaves and doesn't linger around the pack. I want her at least 50 miles away from the pack at all times. Thane said to Bo and Lucas, who nodded and ran off behind her. In anger, Thane picked up one of the chairs and smashed it into the shelves that held wine glasses, and I gasped in horror. I said calmly and walked up to him and touched his shoulders, which was moving at a rapid pace because of his breathing. In fine and chest gone. He spun around and looked guilty. I shouldn't have scared you. He touched my cheek gently. You didn't. I told you before. I'm not scared of you. I whispered. Just give me some space before I hurt you. He sighed and backed away towards the door. Wait. I called back to him. He stopped in his tracks. Can you drive me home? I asked because I desperately needed painkillers. He nodded and I handed him the keys to the car as he waited by the door for me. Will you all get home all right? I asked them all. Bailey Meadow lift back. No thanks, Em. I think I'm going to visit my parents to explain what just happened with Abigail, she said with both worry and relief in her tone. I'm sorry for bringing you here with her. I hope you both can forgive me, she whispered. There's nothing to forgive. I shook my head. What she did was of her own accord, and you're not to blame. The only forgiveness to be dealt out is your parents' forgiveness to us, I said in sorrow, because even though her parents adopted Abigail, she was still their daughter. This was my call, Emery, not yours, Thane said from behind me. I looked at him like he was crazy. Regardless of whose decision it was, we're in this together. I support you even though I don't agree with you. Thane gazed at me with such intensity that I couldn't figure out what was going through his mind before he cut in. They'll be outside. I watched as he disappeared out the door as I turned back to Bailey. What was that about? I think He is still a bit riled up over what happened. She grabbed me in a hug and whispered into my ear. She deserved what happened to her, and honestly am kind of relieved. She would have caused nothing but trouble, and according to pack law she should be dead for even laying a finger on you. What do you mean? I asked, curiously. She just smiled at me. We have lost you now. But one law in particular states that if anyone harms the Luna or the Alpha's mate, in this case you, should be killed without trial. I stood there in shock. Wow, that's really... I trailed off because of a lack of words. Barbaric. Cruel. I don't think so. Our Luna is our most adored person. She deserves respect. Bailey smiled at me with adoration. Now why don't you go home and get cleaned up? I'm sure you're going to be pretty sore. Thanks, Bailey, and I already feel like the dead. If you need anything or your parents need anything, just let me know, I said with a goodbye to her and the girls. Luna, Layla called before I could exit. It was the first time she actually spoke to me, and to say I was shocked was putting it lightly. I'm really sorry for what happened today. We should have never treated you that way, and I'm sorry for what Abigail did. She apologized profusely, and it looked like guilt was eating her up. I shook my head at her. Hey, no. It's not your fault. Any of it. You never said a mean word to me, Layla. Actually, you never said a word to me. So technically you have nothing to apologize for or worry about except Abigail. I smiled comfortingly to her. I'm sorry for her being kicked out. I know you were both close. No, don't apologize. She's been nothing but mean to you. She gave me a gentle smile. Everyone is right. You're a great Luna. I'm sorry I didn't see that before. She mumbled and walked away. I turned back to the door and walked out limping because the pain still lingered. Thane was waiting over by the car, but as he spotted me he walked over. Let me carry you, Thane said as he picked me up bridal style. Thank you. I grinned at him because I was just happy to be off my feet and in Manessa's arms. He gave me a small smile and placed me in the passenger side of the car and then got in and started towards the pack house. He warmed up the car and made his first attempt at a conversation since he came into the bar. Are you sure you're okay? Should I tell Adler to meet us at the house? No, some painkillers would suffice, but nothing's wrong. No broken bones and all cuts healed. I reported jokingly, but it was to no avail as he didn't even crack a smile. He just kept staring at the road ahead. Hey, are you okay? I asked worriedly and placed my hand on his arm. He just nodded and mumbled. I'm fine. No, you're not. You're my mate Thane. I got spidey senses on your feelings. I declared. Spidey senses? He asked in distaste. You know, like Spider-Man, I said in a deep voice. I know what it is. Then why are you angry? I asked in concern. I'm not. You are, I retorted. I'm not. But you are. Can we stop this? He pleaded. Not until you tell me what's wrong. In the morning, was all he said without looking at me. Something was definitely up with him, but I couldn't tell exactly what was wrong. I was concerned about him, but he wouldn't open up to me as we drove back to the house. After a few minutes of driving, I knew we were almost to the pack house and I had to figure out what was bothering him. Running my plan through my mind, I waited for him to pull into the driveway and put the car in park. As soon as he changed gears and pulled up the handbrake, I pulled off my seat belt and climbed over into his seat and sat straddling him. Emery, what are you doing? You're going to hurt yourself, he said in a panic and placed his hands on my waist to move me. No, Thane. I'm all right. Healing powers, remember? I'm all healed up, I explained. No, Emma, you're not. You're hurt and you need to rest. I glared at him until he shut up. Will you just stop fussing and tell me what's wrong? I demanded. I told you. Nothing's wrong. He avoided my gaze. Then stop avoiding my question. No. I'm supposed to be the cranky one. I just got my ass handed to me from your ex and you don't have the right to be angry with me. I'm not angry with you, he said between clenched teeth. I cupped his cheeks. Then tell me what's bothering you, I asked gently. He looked up at me, and it was then that I saw the torment and utter turmoil within him, and angry at myself. He barely whispered. My gaze instantly softened, and I gave him a look of adoration. Why, Thane? Today couldn't have been prevented. He gave me an incredulous look. But it could have. If I had just joined you there, or kept you by my side. But you didn't. Which I appreciate you so much for. You don't keep me all locked up and glued to your side, Thane. Do you know how amazing it is to have that freedom and alone time? But in keeping you here against your will. Maybe at first, yes. But now I wouldn't leave you if you gave me the choice. We're mates and we're meant to be together. I tried to make him understand. He shook his head at me. She could have killed you, Emery. Why do you not get that? Anyone in the pack can kill you. But she didn't and no one else wants to. She was the only one who didn't like me and I'm stronger than you make me out to be, Thane. He pulled me into his arms and whispered, I know you are. Trust me by the damage you did to her. I know you're strong. But I was so worried. I thought I almost lost you when the bartender linked me and said you were bleeding out. Bailey wasn't even opening her mind link and I didn't know what to expect walking in there. I wrapped my arms around him in comfort. But I'm fine, Thane. I'm alive. Also, I was bleeding out. I laughed the bartender's exaggeration. I couldn't bear it if anything had happened to you, Emery. I couldn't live with myself if I was there to protect you. He proclaimed. I rested my forehead against his and just took in the feeling of being in his arms. Don't worry. You never have to feel that way again because nothing's going to happen. I promised him. I kissed his lips and said, now stop beating yourself up because I need you to take care of me. I promise to take care of you and to never let anyone else ever lay a finger on you again. Just promise me you'll stop beating yourself up over this. He looked at me for a few moments before he said, only if you promise me something. Tell me. I asked curiously. Stop wondering if you're a great Luna. You are. What Abigail said was because of jealousy. You're not weak and you proved that today. Both physically and mentally. I looked at him in shock. How do you know? Layla mind linked me and said to ensure that you knew you're a great Luna. He pecked my lips. I can't agree, but I'm too tired to fight you on this. I yawned. His first actual smile graced his lips for the night, which caused a smile to grow on my lips. Promise me or I will suffer in my despair. It's despair you called upon yourself. I shrugged with a smile. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. He pleaded. I kissed both his cheeks and whispered in his ear. I felt him relax beneath me and knew that the issue was resolved for now. Now let me tell you how incredibly sexy you look in this dress. He smirked and trailed his hands up my bare thigh. I stopped his wandering hands with my own. Oh, Mr. Blackwood, your suffering, remember. Then be my savior. He nipped at my neck. I giggled at his flirtatiousness. Serious 1 minute and flirty the next. I tapped him upside the head. What I compliment my mate. He grinned like a Cheshire cat. I rolled my eyes. Well, the dress is ruined with all this blood and my hair is damp with alcohol. So no compliments. I saw a flash of anger in Nana's eyes and knew he was over what happened to me just yet. I should have killed her for even touching you. No, you shouldn't have. Enough blood was spilt. I didn't agree with what you did, but I knew it was for the best. I tried to calm him down. I'm fine now. Just need a bath. I'm sorry for not considering you when making the decision. He apologized. I couldn't have made such a choice. But don't do it again. I finalized. I started to move off him when he stopped me. You said she beat you up, but from my point of view, you really held your own. You did amazing and I'm proud of you. He said honestly. She had the last punch, plus your opinion is biased. But she's a wolf. It shouldn't have been that hard for her. So just accept that fact that you're my strong-ass mate. Oh hush. I pecked his lips and rolled my eyes. But seriously, should I be concerned about my life now? He grinned at me. Maybe training you was a mistake. I stuck my tongue out at him. You should be very scared of me, Alpha Moon. He mumbled before trailing kisses from the base of my neck all the way to my mouth. After a gentle kiss he pulled away. You really are my savior, he said cryptically. And you're mine, I muttered back.